Hey, welcome back to another episode of Weekly Roundup. My name is Frankie.
And I'm Ryan from the Coffee Break.
Yeah, and always thanks to the Coffee Break, which helps us to compile all the interesting news of the week.
Subscribe and we've got your back.
Okay, let's start today's episode by giving some economic updates to our audience.
Yes.
Right. So according to the Department of Statistics Malaysia, our CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, one of the favorite measure for the Bank Negara to measure inflation, right, came in at about 1.5% in December 2023. So with that, it also means that the annual inflation, if you calculate from January to December of 2023, it comes down to about 2.5% for the year. So on the headline numbers, right, it looks like it's quite okay, right? Just 2.5% inflation. But definitely when you go and have your meal or you go shopping, it definitely didn't feel like 2.5%.
Definitely more. Definitely more. I think even in Teh Ice also has increased. From January itself, from December, I think it definitely increased in pricing. Like mama food. Food is one of the main component, right?
Yeah. But nonetheless, when the policy makers, they draft a policy, they always use the official number. So since the official number is 2.5%, which is very manageable, they decided to maintain the OPR rate, the overnight policy rate, which is the interest rate at 3% this time round.
Yay. So house installment, status quo. For now, status quo, right?
Right, but just to share with you a little bit, right? So what contribute to inflation in December last year? So apparently the biggest culprit for inflation in December 2023 comes from F&B. Price increase in restaurants and hotels, which is 3.7% inflation during the period. Apart from that, various goods and services went up by 2.7%. Food and non-alcoholic beverages is about 2.3%. So these are the three major categories that contributed to our inflation in December. Not surprising. I mean, the example that we have quoted, it's all food related, right? Yeah. So
year-end spending also lah.
Year-end spending also,
right?
Correct. But coming to the OPR rate, 3%. Yes, we can argue that maybe because the inflation rate was quite stable, 2.5%, and therefore they maintain it. I think it's also because the Fed in the US, they are also maintaining their interest rate. So in order not to disrupt the Forex rate, right? So it's better to just keep our OPR rate at 3%, which is what 28 other economists surveyed by Reuters, they also held similar opinion. And I think that this 3% interest rate may last until the end of 2025.
Yeah, I think it also depends, right? Because it depends on the growth of the country. So RHB Investment Bank has maintained that this year, the GDP growth, the gross domestic product growth of the country, will be about 4.6%. And the growth momentum is expected to accelerate this year, driven by mainly improvements in external demand. So it also, again, is contingent on how, what is going to happen in the world again, right? So there are a lot of events. We've seen outliers in the past few years. Will this 4.6 hold? Not sure.
Yeah. Which is very hard to predict because you are depending on external factors, right? And external factors is the one that comes with a lot of uncertainties. I mean, if there's another geopolitical tension among the countries and also this year is an election year in the US. So all this will affect whether the world is going to buy more goods from Malaysia.
A lot of uncertainties, I think. Bearing in mind also, right, in come March, right, there will also be an increase of SST to 8%. And this is except for F&B, telco, and parking services, right?
But then if you think about it, right, yes, F&B, food and beverages, you're exempted from the 8% SST. But the raw materials that that is going into the F&B, your chairs, tables, raw materials and whatnot, all this kena SST, what?
Yeah, so with all these factors coming in, will there then be a increase in prices in general, which drives up the CPI? Remains to be seen.
I think very likely that we will experience another round of increase in the F&B space also. Because not just the tables and chairs, you are also talking about a new taxable service, which is your logistics service. Now, all this raw material will not just appear in your restaurant, right? It needs logistic services, right?
Correct.
So if cost is going to go up, it's only the consumer is going to suffer.
Correct. There's also the low value goods tax for imported low value goods less than 500, also recently implemented. On the other end, there will be a high value goods tax that is expected to come in May. So that's 5 to 10%. Bearing in mind, subsidies will also be reduced. With Padu coming in, I think they are exploring on the subsidy for petrol. So subsidies will also kick in. And then business owners, if they're not B40, then what will happen? They may not get the subsidies. Then how will they sustain their business? More increases could be coming. So there are a few key dates we have to keep in mind just to see if there will be another hike by BNM's Monetary Policy Committee. So there are 6 dates. So 24th of January was the first one. Second one will be 7th of March, 9th of May, 11th of July, 5th September, and 6th of November.
So basically every 2 months.
Every 2 months, we have to keep in mind whether your housing payment will go up or not.
And I think during this meeting, they will look at US and say, hey, whether they reduce your interest rate or not, or they prefer to maintain an interest rate. From there, it will also play a very big role in terms of deciding what the OPR rate is going to be. Just now you brought up a point about subsidy rationalization and, put it in short, you tax the rich and then you try to help the poor. So that is the general direction of the government, right?
Yep.
But that day I was speaking to one businessman. Mm-hmm. He gave a very interesting comment about this situation. Mm-hmm. So he was saying, right, yes, I can understand that the government is trying to tax the rich, tax businesses, and then to try to help the poor. And it's also for the government to increase their revenue to do a lot more things.
Yep.
But they forgot to appreciate the fact that businessmen have options, they have choices. They are not limited to their operations in Malaysia. All they need is enough capital. They can just open a factory or open another operation in overseas like Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia. So instead of hoping to get more revenue from all these businesses, you may actually end up losing everything. You even your talents may actually leave the country and go elsewhere. So I think this is something that perhaps the policy makers need to be somewhat more aware and try to draft policies that is more inclusive so that everyone can benefit. It's not just at the expense of another party.
Because a business can then move their operations elsewhere where the cost becomes cheaper, labor cost becomes cheaper.
Correct.
All this all this infrastructure, because our neighboring countries are all trying to also grow their country, develop their country, right?
Yes.
We are maybe seeing some FDIs coming in, but then some inflows, some outflows as well. Right?
So at the end of the day, it's all about where can the business make the most profit. The business will just go there.
Is it also high time for the country to look at high value services instead, like move towards the high value? So if you talk about OPEX, talk about labor costs, maybe it's going to be more expensive. But is it also for government to consider, upskilling the people, just to... Are we there yet?
We are trying to move towards that. Now, last week we talked about that AI online course that people could take, right? So that could be a good start for people to upskill themselves. But at the end of the day, if you just keep increasing the minimum wage rate, but if you don't upskill the people, it just means more expensive, but no productivity. At the end of the day, businesses will also leave.
Fair. No, I think that's a fair comment. You can't just increase the rate without thinking about the skills.
Correct.
The value that they bring.
Right.
Yeah. So is then the future of Malaysia, is it gloomy for Malaysia or not?
Hard to say. Time will tell.
Yeah. A former Bank Negara Malaysia Deputy Governor, Shukdev Singh, portrayed Malaysia as a lost child in the future. And this is mainly due to extremism. So he said that Malaysia will continue to struggle economically, being burdened by inflated pensions and diminished opportunities, especially for the Chinese and Indians. Right? So he said they are experiencing below replacement birth rates, coupled with huge immigration. So over the years, I think, if you look at the graph, you can see that the birth rate of Bumiputra is going up, whereas the Chinese and Indians, they're coming down, or they're stabilizing rather. So this is a fair concern. And we are just looking at the current trajectory. But you have to also keep in mind that there is a so-called replacement rate. Birth versus deaths, right? So if there are more deaths and births, that means the population will eventually go down. And what will happen then? Because the beauty of Malaysia, and I think we all can all agree, is the diversity of the culture, the diversity of talent that we bring. That's also what helped to build this country, actually, right? And it's something we cannot forget. What different skill sets that we bring. It's different skill sets that we bring to the table. The government has to find a fine balance between, it's a tough job, definitely a tough job, like, where's the tug of war, right? Are you really pushing the right direction or not? Are the policies friendly to all races or not?
But I just have one comment on this, right? I think we are already in the 21st century. When we talk about Malaysian population, when we talk about economic growth and all that, not so sure why all these so-called experts, right? They just look at it in the sense of Bumiputra growth and then Chinese and Indian growth. Why can't we just look at Malaysian growth, right? So if Malaysian can grow together, yes, maybe you may have a huge migration of Chinese and Indian population overseas and whatnot, maybe due to the reasons that we discussed earlier. But whatever reason it is, at the end of the day, if the net number of population is still increasing, I think it's still okay, right? But ultimately, it still comes back to education, not just to educate Chinese, Indian or Malay, but if we educate Malaysian enough and we can grow together as a country, everyone still benefits, right?
Yeah.
And eventually, we will attract not just Chinese, Malay, Indian, you would attract, I don't know, Japanese, Korean, and Americans to Malaysia also, right?
Yeah. The diversity is actually the country's advantage. From what we see, right? Like,
correct.
you just get diverse resources and build in a country. So you're right. So the government, again, focus on less politicking, hopefully, more focus on the growth of
Yes.
people. Okay, we may sound like a broken record because we always talk about scams. But last year, the scam industry did so well, specifically investment scam. Almost 500 million was lost due to investment scam last year. And that is 117% more in 2022. With 5,386 cases reported in 2023, that's averages about 87,000 ringgit per victim.
And this is just reported. I'm sure there are a lot of cases not reported.
Yeah, because I mean, you want to jaga muka lah, right?
Yeah.
So, and the one that takes the cake is one scam. I think one victim from Sepang that lost a massive 12 million ringgit.
Oh, 12 million ringgit.
Yeah, so the victim was asked to participate in a virtual currency project that promised return as high as 50%.
50% a month, a day, or a year? I don't know,
I think
right?
it's probably a year lah.
Anyway, 50 to get gains at
even
50%.
a year lah. A year is.
It's very difficult.
I think the best fund managers in the market in Malaysia is probably looking at 30 to 20. The best of the best, and these are professionals, being paid to do their job to get 30, 40, and I mean, in the end of the day, it's all greed lah. It all boils down to greed lah. And people should be more aware of this kind of things, right? Like for any investment that promises a return that is higher than EPF, it is better to stay away. EPF is, that standard benchmark, 5 to 6%, quite standard. This year, we don't know yet. We shall find out probably by next week or the week after, right? They will announce sometime in February, right? EPF return.
Yeah, most likely.
Just imagine, like, you take that 12 million, you put in FD also, right? It's quite good money. At 3% is really 360,000 a year.
No, that's the thing, right? If you ask a person to put 12 million in the stock market, sometimes if they're not familiar with the market, they will say, it's a gamble.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're very reluctant to do a little bit of homework to understand the businesses that they could potentially invest in and make money out of it. But when somebody tells you, I can help you to do 50% return in a year, without second thought, you will just give the money away. So sometimes I just don't understand what kind of mentality is that. Again, I think it boils down to education and awareness also lah.
Yeah. So becoming rich is one thing. Staying rich is another thing. But perhaps one way to prevent being scammed is to see if the company is being regulated or not. So one thing that I think the Securities Commission, Malaysian Securities Commission, does a good job. They publish a list which is in alert, who is regulated in all the industry. Like even I think for digital exchange also they have a list that are regulated. For P2P also they have it, right? And well, while some are regulated, some claim they are lah, right? But whether they're scam or not remains to be seen.
Right.
And financial authorities actually denied that they have approved this company to operate. One of them is actually a P2P financing platform in Malaysia called HEP2P. Okay. So Securities Commission has never permitted HEP2P to operate its P2P platform, and it's so adamant that it does not allow, up to the point actually initiated several actions and interventions against HEP2P, including placing it on the SC's investor alert list, right, blocking its websites and issuing cease and desist notice. But the unauthorized company still managed to find ways to solicit investors from the market. So it's despite so many ways already, but still it's operating. But just remember, if you are trying to do any funny business, there are also fines, right? So the SC can fine up to 10 million or jail up to 10 years for any entity that operate P2P platform without the Securities Commission's authorization. And then another one that was also on the news last week was this company called Quantum Metal Sdn Bhd, right? So Bank Negara Malaysia denied that the central bank has given an approval and license to Quantum Metal to conduct its activities, right? This is despite Quantum Metal being a reporting institution under the Anti-Money Laundering and Anti-Terrorism Financing Proceeds, the AMLA Act, right? A reporting institution under the AMLA means that any person, including branches or subsidiaries of that entity, who carries on any activity listed in the first schedule, right? And in this case, Quantum Metal is because Quantum Metal deals in precious metals, they're included in the first schedule of AMLA. But being a reporting institution does not mean they're registered, approved or licensed under BNM. So this is also something to look into lah.
Right. So if I understand the situation correctly for this Quantum Metal case, right, is that maybe they are given the liberty to do reporting on AMLA, but that doesn't mean that they are allowed to do precious metal trading. But they have gone into precious metal trading and they sort of use that trading to do reporting back to the Bank Negara. So it created some confusion and therefore Bank Negara issued a statement to clarify the situation.
Correct.
Right? Something like that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So from the official website of Quantum Metal, actually it says that the nature of business of Quantum Metal is actually a gold trading company, which does not require this company to register under SC or BNM lah, right? Which is similar to goldsmith traders. But again, look out for I think it's Quantum Metals. I think they also deal with investments.
Yep.
I believe so, at least from what I've read or what I've seen on Twitter, that seems to be the case. So again, be mindful which kind of investment you're dabbling into.
Having said that, if you call them a scam, also not really, because according to their own disclaimer, they have 31 tons of gold reserve.
And this is what was posted on Twitter lah. So it was like a seminar setting like this. There was this video where he said, we have 31 tons in gold reserve.
Sampai sekarang hari ini, Quantum Metal sudah ada aset 31 tan. Pegangan emas itu ada 31 tan.
But then if you think about it, the Bank Negara, which is the central bank, they only got 38.8 tons. So they are almost as big as our central bank.
But I do not, this claim, we don't know how, we don't know how good it was lah, because we saw it on Twitter, right? So, but yeah lah, there was a claim that I think also raised a bit of concerns among people who have invested in the company or invested in whatever product that they had. Yeah. So last week, it was a busy week for Bursa Malaysia.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, but for the past few months, it has been a busy month for the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, right? So the MACC Chief Commissioner last week actually confirmed that a Tan Sri's resident and 4 companies, which included a government vehicle supplier, have been raided. And this raid is in relation to the 4.5 billion corruption case involving procurement and management of government fleet of vehicles, right? The media outlets stopped short of naming the Tan Sri involved and also the company involved. So with regards to the procurement and management of government's fleet, right? So in 2018, the contract expired. And the previous supplier was Penco Sdn Bhd. The contract expired. And in 2019, 7 companies bid for a contract to supply government with vehicles.
Okay, fair. Right? Because government say everything must go through tender.
To do open tender, right? So it was initially awarded to a joint venture firm between Berjaya Corporation Berhad and Nazar Corporation's Holdings Sdn Bhd. But there was a twist in the tale. So during Tan Sri Muhyiddin's administration, the letter of intent to Berjaya and also Nazar was withdrawn, and surprisingly, Penco Sdn Bhd was awarded the contract again. The situation actually led to an eventual lawsuit being filed by Berjaya and Nazar against the government and also Penco Sdn Bhd.
Whoa, who is this Spenco? We managed to clinch the contract so many times.
Okay, so who is this Penco, right? So since 1993, Penco Sdn Bhd has been the sole company that manages the government's fleet of vehicles. So when the 25-year contract expired in 2018, 25-year contract,
right?
Okay, that's already that's a 25-year contract. It triggered an intense race to win actually a 15-year contract worth 300 million annually after the 5th year.
Whoa.
Very, very, very lucrative business, right?
Managing vehicles only, every year can get 300 million. How much they... What I don't know, what do they do with the car?
I think this is probably like a lease and sale back agreement with the government. Not exactly sure. I didn't look into the contract, what it entails, but again, no media outlets mention which country were involved, but it seems to have some ties to this case.
Okay.
Right?
It's an interesting news to continue to follow up.
Yeah. And the next one was again, like made the news lah. So we saw the seizure of Menara Ilham right before the New Year, and that was related to Tun Daim, right? And now the wife, Puan Naima Abdul Khalid, the wife of Tun Daim Zainuddin, was actually charged in court last week, right? And she didn't plead guilty lah, right? She wants to go trial and all that. And then when she came out to give a PC, to give a press conference, she gave a warning to the Prime Minister. Bro.
Oh, what did she say?
She said there'll be a reckoning for those who abuse power.
Fuyo, that's strong words, man.
So this comes after Naima was charged with not declaring her assets to MACC. She asserted her innocence, and she attributes this to a plot to tarnish her husband's reputation. And Naima then went on to say that key national institutions like MACC, the Attorney General's chambers being used for political vendettas. And she quoted Shakespeare, man.
No.
And then she also posted bail, 250,000.
So to build on that point, right, Peter and Ong Ken Ming, they also started a new podcast. It's called Are We Okay? So if you want to understand more about government policies and what is the government actually doing currently, don't forget to check it out on Are We Okay YouTube channel. And this particular show is also uploaded on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, right? If let's say today the MACC suddenly comes and knock on your door and say, hey, I suspect you are involved in abuse of power, corruption or whatever. But to prove your innocence, you need to show me all the assets that you have. What would you do?
Declare my assets.
Right.
Declare my assets. If I'm innocent, declare my assets because
Okay.
I am innocent. What?
Right.
Right. You want to audit me, audit my asset?
So under what circumstances would you not want to declare your assets?
If there's no probable cause, I guess. Why am I being audited? I need to understand why am I being audited, right?
Okay.
If there's in relation of something, okay. But if it's not related to me, why should I declare my assets?
Okay, true. So on MACC parts, they should also come out with, maybe not concrete evidence because they're gathering
Correct.
evidence.
They're investigating lah.
They're investigating, but at least give some context of why they are here and why they want you to declare those assets, right?
It is a touchy topic, and not only the wife of Tun Daim got involved. So MACC also asked the former PM Tun Mahathir, the son of former PM Tun Mahathir, Mirzan Mahathir. He's given 30 days to declare all of his assets domestically and abroad. But this reason was given. So Mirzan was investigated by MACC due to his alleged involvement in the sale and purchase of government-linked companies that were mentioned in the Panama Papers. So Panama Papers, I think Panama Papers was leaked in 2016. Pandora, I think, was in 2021. Right, those were the papers that, I think, what was the firm name in the UK? Now, one of those firms, those documents got leaked, right? So, and this investigation actually is a part of a series of probes initiated last year into all the entities related to the Panama and Pandora Papers, right?
Yeah, so put it this way, right? If suddenly my name appears on Pandora Papers or Panama Papers, it's a very big allegation. And if I'm a successful businessman, I definitely want to clear my name. So actually, I wouldn't mind to declare my assets. Of course, that would also mean exposing myself. But at that level, I think it's not that nobody knows you are a successful businessman or whatnot, right? So they probably have a rough idea of how much wealth you have. It's just now you're putting a solid number to that wealth.
Yep.
But if that solid number is able to help you to clear your name and then help you to continue to do your business in the future, and then nobody comes and kacau you going forward, I think it's okay lah, right? Because Panama Papers and Pandora Papers is an international paper that was leaked, right? So if you don't clear your own name, wherever you go in the whole world, people will have that mindset that, hey, this guy maybe, not so honest, correct.
So the Panama Papers were talking about offshore entities.
Yeah.
And offshore entities are known for?
Never mind.
Move on. Move on, right? And whereas the Pandora Papers, they were actually 12 million or nearly 12 million documents that incriminated hundreds of global elite for alleged tax avoidance and corruption. So if your names are in these papers, chances are, there could be something going on, right? So that's all we have for the news this week. It seems like the authorities are having a busy start to the year. Last week we had Bursa, this week we have MECC, next week don't know who else.
Yeah. But nonetheless, if you like this episode and if you want to listen it all over again, don't forget we also upload this episode on Spotify. It's called The Weekly Roundup by the FAQ Show.
Check it out, subscribe, and listen while you're driving to work.